Welcome to Zandvoort for round 12 of the 15-round 1981 Formula One World Championship Series. The Zandvoort course, which is 2.6 miles long, is amidst the sand dunes on the west coast of Holland. In fact, it is right by the North Sea. There in the centre of your picture is the grandstand. We're obviously looking down on the circuit from the helicopter. And now the grid, the 24-car grid for this 72-lap race around the 2.6-mile course, which is 190 miles altogether. And after practice, not surprisingly, it's the two Renaults in the fastest positions on the grid. Alain Prost fastest, his teammate René Arnoux second fastest. Then the third quickest was Nelson Piquet in the Brabham, and fourth, the reigning world champion Alan Jones. His teammate Carlos Reutemann fifth, and Jacques Laffite, who won the Austrian Grand Prix, sixth fastest. Then a surprise, seventh fastest Mario Andretti in the Alfa Romeo, and eighth John Watson in the Marlboro. Ninth was Elio De Angelis in the Lotus, and 10th Riccardo Patrese in the Arrows. 11th Laffite's teammate Tombay in the Talbot car, and then Didier Pironi, the French driver, followed by Bruno Giacomelli and Hector Ribach. Gilles Villeneuve 15th fastest, and then the Englishman Nigel Mansell. Jean-Pierre Jarier in the Osella, 19th fastest was Derek Daly, and then Marc Surer in the Theodore, Siegfried Stohr, the Italian with the German name in the Arrows, Eddie Cheever in the Tyrrell car, Slim Borgud, the Swedish driver in the ATS, Eliseo Salazar, and 25th fastest in practice, but he got into the race, Alboreto, because there's only 24 allowed, but De Cesaris was decided not to start after a practice crash. There is Alain Prost, the winner of the French Grand Prix, fastest in practice, leaning over the cockpit, his team manager Gerard Larousse. And the Renaults have to be favourite for this race, as second fastest is René Arnoux, who was fastest in practice last year and the year before. Now the Renaults do not have the power advantage that they had in Austria, the previous meeting, because there's sea level, and the normally aspirated engined cars like that of Alan Jones, the reigning world champion, here are less at a disadvantage in comparison with the Renaults than they are at some other circuits. But the Renaults, fastest in the practice period, are obviously going to be way out front for the beginning of the race, we expect. Carlos Reutemann leading the World Championship, and Jacques Laffite, who won the Austrian Grand Prix in his 12-cylinder Matra engined Talbot car. A car that's come on tremendously well in the last few races. The World Championship situation, Carlos Reutemann leading with 45 points from Piquet, 6 points behind him. And so it's a very, very close thing, because mathematically 10 men can still win the World Championship. There is the course, and they go round clockwise down the 175-mile straight into the Tarzan corner, which they're into now. And then there is the twisty section to Gerlach and Hugenholz, up to the Hunserruch, and then along the top part of the course, Tunnel Oost means the East Tunnel, which goes underneath the course, and then they plunge down through a very fast section into Bos Wheat, which is the right-hander, which leads into the fifth gear, 175-mile-an-hour straight. So, 72 laps, and it's going to be very grueling. It's not nearly as hot as we had expected it to be here in Holland. And so now all is ready. 24 cars on the grid, the Renault's in front, the lights are red, and it's go. And it's Prost getting a very good start with René Arnoux behind him. Alan Jones is coming up well, and someone's been hit right in the middle of the course, and it's Villeneuve. Gilles Villeneuve is going to be out of the race on the very first corner. So he's had a lot of trouble in practice, absolutely for nothing, because the Ferrari will have been badly damaged in that crash. Maybe we'll see a replay later and be able to establish what actually happened. Meantime, it's Prost, Arnoux, Jones, and Piquet is well up, and there go the rest of the field crew. Hector Ribach in the Brabham, Derek Daly in the March car, But as expected, it is Renault's first and second on lap 1, with Prost leading Arnoux. Alan Jones is very close up behind the second Renault, trying to take him on the left-hander as they come up to the Marlborough Bocht. That's the chicane, the new chicane. And now into the sweeping right-hander at Huzarenflach, and they go from there round the Bosweet, which they're up to now. And here is that replay. Gilles Villeneuve spinning off, Mario Andretti going through and just avoiding him. And as you can see, that Ferrari will have been badly damaged on the left front corner, and I'm not expecting to see Villeneuve's car anymore. Meantime, the end of lap 1. And it is Prost. Behind him, René Arnoux, tucked up behind Arnoux and trying to take him. Alan Jones in third position. Then it is Nelson Piquet in fourth position, and the blue Talbot of Jacques Lafitte in fifth position. René Arnoux either deliberately or inadvertently is holding up the rest of the field, and on lap 2, Alain Prost is making the most of a clear circuit and pulling away. Reutemann is 6th. There's Mario Andretti 7th and John Watson 8th. And I noticed that as Mario Andretti went past, the nose, the wing on the front of his Alfa Romeo has been very badly twisted. And I noticed looking at Villeneuve's car as he crashed at the beginning that it was an Alfa Romeo that was close to him. So presumably Andretti and Villeneuve had that coming together, because certainly Andretti's car is badly damaged at the front, and that will be affecting the downforce and therefore the grip on the circuit. Lap 2, Prost leads. Alain Prost, who drove for the Marlboro McLaren team last year. This is his first year with his French national team, and this is another replay. Look at the middle of the picture and you see Villeneuve's red Ferrari coming up alongside the Alfa Romeo, going between two cars, and that was the trouble. Villeneuve was trying to force his way through between Andretti's car, and I suspect Riccardo Patrese, yes, it's Patrese's arrows. So Villeneuve, making another of his very forceful starts, overdid it that time. Andretti and Patrese didn't move aside quickly enough, and that was Villeneuve's downcoming. And already Patrick Tambay in the Talbot Matra is seemingly out of the race. His car being jacked up, and the Frenchman out of the cockpit, and Patrick Tambay has not had the best of luck since he left the Arrows team earlier this year, the Theodore team earlier this year, transferred to Talbot. And there's Pironi. What a dreadful race for Ferrari already. Villeneuve out of the race, and Pironi, who did so well in Belgium, is in the pits and has lost enough time to destroy any chances. So it's Prost leading still, Arnoux, and just as in Spain, there is an assembly of cars, but this time it is not a Ferrari. It was Villeneuve that was holding them up in Spain. This time it's René Arnoux, and completing the lap, it's Alain Prost pulling away. There he goes, Arnoux, and again Jones goes through and tries to take him, and it looks as though he's going to do it. Yes, Alan Jones is going up into second place. In third position now, Arnoux. In fourth position, number 5 is Piquet in fifth position, and trying to go through on the inside, Jacques Lafitte in the Talbot. And behind Lafitte in sixth position, it's Carlos Reutemann. Alain Prost out on his own. We're looking at the new second place man, and that's where Jones last year lost the lead. Coming out of the left-hander at Hugenholtz, Jones let his Williams drift over too far to the right last year, destroyed the right-hand skirt of his car, lost downforce, and went out of the lead. But now he's in second place in 1981. Arnoux in the yellow, Renault is third, Piquet's fourth, Lafitte is fifth, Carlos Reutemann is in sixth position, and I just saw John Watson coming into the picture in seventh place. Well, the turbos are not doing well with their Ferrari turbos, but they're doing well in terms of Renault, because there goes Prost across the line again. Alan Jones is pulling away, and now Piquet is going up into third position. René Arnoux must be in some sort of trouble, as Lafitte tries to take fourth position from Arnoux now. Those Renaults are absolutely identical. So with Prost out in front and Arnoux now back in fourth position, it is very clear that René Arnoux, number 16, the 33-year-old driver from Magny-Cours, has got some problem with the turbocharged Renault, because just look at the way that Nelson Piquet is pulling away, and look too at the way that Jacques Lafitte is holding on to René Arnoux, and here they come. Alan Jones really throwing the Saudi Alayla Williams about. And we have an interesting tyre situation in the race too. It's Michelin tyres on the Renault in the lead. It is Goodyear tyres on that car, Nelson Piquet's Parmalat Brabham, and the car in front of him, that one, number 1 world champion Alan Jones. Then there's the Michelin tyred Renault of René Arnoux in fourth position. Michelin again on the Talbot of Jacques Lafitte, and across the line into the 175-mile-an-hour straight. Prost, Jones, third place Piquet, fourth place Arnoux, fifth place Lafitte, sixth place Reutemann into Tarzan, second gear, 110 miles an hour. Change up into third gear for Gerlach, down into second gear for this right-hander. Then down into first gear for the Hugenholtz bend, accelerate away, up into second, 110 miles an hour round here. Now up into third, it's 135 miles an hour, into the Rob Slottermacher bends, up to the highest point of the course at Skyblack, back into third gear, 135 miles an hour, into the top straight, and it's 150 miles an hour at this section here, before they go into the Marlborough Bocht. The left and the right, the new chicane that was put in last year to slow this section down because it was rightly thought to be too dangerous. They were getting up to 180 miles an hour in this section. And now down to the Panorama Bocht, the right and left, and it's dropping downhill slightly here. And there's a gigantic crane at this point to lift any cars off that may crash. And into the straight again, round Bossuit, and still Alain Prost is in the lead and seemingly going to retain it, because there's a very considerable gap now between himself and Alan Jones. And Alain Prost, the 26-year-old Frenchman from Saint-Chamond, who won the French Grand Prix in his first year in his national Renault team, and who subsequently led the British Grand Prix, led in Germany, led in Austria, and went out with a broken suspension, surely deserves a victory. But there's the crane I was telling you about, as round the panorama he comes again. And Alain Prost, you can see the gap now between the turbocharged Renault of Prost and the green and white Saudi Alayla Williams of number 1 world champion Alan Jones, and they're almost within sight of the right-hander at Bossuit now to complete another lap. And how is it behind? Well, there's somebody before I answer that question, and that somebody is Derek Daly, who's the March team driver, 19th fastest in practice, obviously out of the race, completed the lap in the lead. Prost completing the lap second, Alan Jones. Behind him in third place, and there he is, Nelson Piquet. But where is René Arnoux? I didn't see Arnoux in that shot. Maybe we'll pick him up later. I suspected, as I said earlier on, that Arnoux was in trouble. We'll get confirmation, hopefully, when we look further down the field. Meantime, Alan Jones, in a car that is definitely slower than the Renault, is trying very, very hard not to lose touch with the Frenchman in front of him, Prost. Behind Jones, Nelson Piquet. And the World Championship positions, of course, are very, very critical as we look down the field a bit. There's two of the Alfa Romeos, and that's Hector Rybak in the background as we go back to look at Jones. It's very critical in the World Championship because as we look at Prost and Jones, first and second, Alan Jones, number 1, is in fourth position in the World Championship with 27 points, and those are the positions after the first lap. But take no notice, fifth lap, but take no notice of that. That caption is definitely wrong. Alan Jones is not in the lead. Take it from me. There is the leader, and it's Alain Prost. A mistake with the man who did the caption, because Alan Jones is in second place and Nelson Piquet is in third position. And Prost driving a superbly smooth race. This Frenchman, after so little experience in Formula One, is proving to be a truly great driver. As we look at Riccardo Patrese, and now you see a close-up of that twisted nose of Mario Andretti's Alfa Romeo with John Watson behind it. The Alfa Romeo very distinctive. No, it's Bruno Giacomelli, his teammate behind him. The V12 Alfa Romeo as we rejoin the leader, Alain Prost, and look how close Alan Jones is. Alan Jones has closed right up on Alain Prost. And this is lap 16 in this 72-lap race, and Alan Jones has been consistently driving, I would have said, right on the absolute limit that his Saudi Alayla Williams car can go around this Dutch course, this 2.6 mile lap. And Alan Jones has whittled down the lead of Alain Prost, which at one point was nearly 10 seconds. And on the 15th lap, you can see that the gap is only 0.75 seconds between Prost and Jones. Then there's about 3 seconds or so between Jones and Piquet, 4 seconds. Lafitte, another 8 seconds back in fourth position. And behind Jacques Lafitte, Carlos Reutemann in fifth place, so both the Leyland Williams cars are in the top six, and John Watson in the Marlboro MP4 is in sixth position. And René Arnoux is definitely out of the race. We haven't seen him on the screen, but I can tell you, my commentary position overlooks the pits, and I have seen René Arnoux come in, and now we see Alan Jones right on the tail of the race leader, Alain Prost. And the man of the race has to be Alan Jones. A fantastic drive. And I wonder if Jones, as they passed Didier Pironi, we saw Pironi in the pits in the Ferrari, and for this race, there is certainly not going to be a Ferrari in the top six. Villeneuve out on the very first corner. Didier Pironi came into the pits earlier on, and you've just seen Prost, and now Riccardo Patrese is in trouble. He was in 10th position, but he's lost places now. Of course, he's slowed right down, and looking down on the helicopter of the battle between Alain Prost in the yellow Renault on the left, Alan Jones in the white Williams behind him. Through the Marlboro Bocht, over the East Tunnel, there it is, down to Panorama, right and left, and Alan Jones's car handles better than Alain Prost, so he can close right up to him on the corners, as he is doing now. But when they come to Bossuit, which is what they're coming up to now, and into it, the right-hander, this is where Alain Prost can put his foot down and exploit the superior power of the Renault. But if Alan Jones, and we've missed it because Riccardo Patrese comes into the pits, he is another man who has had appalling luck, and sure enough, as I said, Alain Prost was able to exploit the superior power of the Renault and pull away just that car's length or so from Alan Jones, who was right with him when they went into the top straight. And on this lap, lap 17, the battle for the lead is followed by Nelson Piquet, who is about 10 seconds behind. In fourth position, it's Jacques Lafitte. In fifth position, it is Carlos Reutemann. In sixth position, John Watson. So it's Renault, the Renault of Prost there, leading the Williams. In third position, the Parmalat Brabham with the Ford V8 engine of Nelson Piquet in fourth position, it's Jacques Lafitte, and there is Riccardo Patrese in the pits. I don't know what the trouble is. Off comes the nose of the car, so it's obviously not tyres. And meantime, again, Jones closes right up to Prost. And in order to try to get past the Frenchman, Alan Jones has got to be right up underneath the wing of the Renault when they come out of Bossuit, and he's coming right up to him now. Alan Jones could try and pass here, and he is going to try and pass. He's right up alongside Alain Prost, but in order to get past him here, he'll have to drive round the outside, and that just is not possible. Or is it? No, it's not, because Prost had got the faster line in the centre of the corner, and Alan Jones will have shown his hand a bit there. You can't blame him, because... And off goes Lafitte! My goodness, that's Jacques Lafitte, who was in 4th position. And he was battling with Carlos Reutemann. Well, all of a sudden, the Dutch Grand Prix of 1981 has really come alive, and that will be a very unhappy Jacques Lafitte sprinting across... Obviously, something's come off the car, and Jacques very sensibly lifts it up to prevent it going into the tyres of any of the race cars that are still on the course. And meantime, Alan Jones is keeping up this terrific pressure on the race leader, Alain Prost, and it was Reutemann with Prost, with Lafitte. Now that I had not realised, because we only saw Jacques, and flying through the air. No wonder Jacques Lafitte retired. He will almost certainly have broken the rear suspension of the Talbot when it smashed down onto the tarmac after that flying leap through the air. And Carlos Reutemann, who we are missing off our lap charts, is out of the race too. That transforms the situation. Up at the front, the battle for the lead between Prost and Alan Jones. The world champion continues, and they're closing up on him. Will soon be lapping tail enders. In 3rd position, it is still Nelson Piquet, but up into 4th place comes... And there's another one off. That's one of the Alfa Romeos. Wait for the dust to clear, and then I can tell you who it is. It's Giacomelli. It's Bruno Giacomelli, not Mario Andretti, the team leader. Well, now Prost and Jones have passed Slim Borgud, the Swedish driver, and Eliseo Salazar in the ensign. Already they're lapping tail enders, and they're closing up now on Michele Alboreto, the young Italian who just got into the race. And Alan Jones is going to try again, or is he? No, because Prost knows Jones tried to get round him on the previous lap. Prost will have been watching his mirrors, but now Prost has got this problem, because ahead of him is Alboreto, behind him and right behind him is Alan Jones, and Prost has got to pick his moment right to pass Alboreto, because those of you who saw the German Grand Prix will remember that this is where Alain Prost lost the lead to Alan Jones in a similar situation when Prost's teammate Arnoux moved across and Jones just dived between the two of them, and he tries again as they come up to the Marlborough box. And it's after this that Alain Prost, with the superior power of the Renault, ought to be able to get past Michele Alboreto. He'll come out, yes he is, he's going to just drive straight past here. No, he's not, because Alboreto holds the line. And Alan Jones is right up. Now Alan Jones is in a passing position, and he's through! Alan Jones into the lead, a new race leader. A brilliant manoeuvre. Alan Jones is absolutely superb at this opportunistic driving, as you saw there. And he goes through and takes Michele Alboreto, and out of his slipstream comes Prost. And what a wonderful fighting Gallic move that was. Alain Prost refuses to give in. You'd think this young Frenchman had been driving in Grand Prix for years and years. He hasn't. He drove in Formula 3 before this, then he went straight into the Marlboro McLaren team, and now in his 2nd season of Formula 1 World Championship driving, he's leading a Grand Prix again with that magnificent passing never say die manoeuvre and retaking the lead from Alan Jones. Lap 20, coming up to lap 25 then. And Alain Prost is back in the lead. He has displaced Alan Jones, who momentarily held the lead, not for a full lap. But we can certainly say that we have had 2 leaders already in the Dutch Grand Prix, and we're not even yet at half distance. Behind them, and now quite a long way behind them, is Nelson Piquet in the Brabham, because these two are setting a tremendous pace at the front. Let's watch it. over the line. Prost and Jones. And I do now wonder whether Alan Jones has shot his bolt. He may be conserving his effort, taking a breather, keeping Prost in sight, waiting to make another charge to close up on and again harry and try to get past the Frenchman. But Prost, this is Reutemann's car, and that is the problem. A broken near side wishbone. That's a wonderful shot. And you can see the problem, and it's no wonder that Carlos Reutemann is out of the race. He has clearly limped back into the pits. And Carlos Reutemann's Williams, with a broken front suspension, is out of the race, and that means that Reutemann leading the World Championship, and Jones is charging again. Look, he's right back with Alain Prost. He's within about 3 car lengths of him. But I was saying that Carlos Reutemann, who is still leading the World Championship, has got no points in this race. You get 9 points for a win. And now, coming towards us is Jean-Pierre Jarier, Marc Surer, Eddie Cheever in the white car, the man with the red helmet. And there's going to be more lapping problems for Alain Prost and Alan Jones, because they have got to catch and then get past Eddie Cheever and the drivers in front of him. And it's always in a situation like this where the order can very easily change if the man behind sees a better chance to get through. Cheever in the white car with the red helmet. Now let's see how Prost takes him. Can he get through? He has. And now Alan Jones is going to have the problem. And Jones, using every ounce of the performance of the Williams, closes up on Cheever. Cheever will let him through, and Jones, on superior braking, starts to close the gap between himself and Alain Prost. Now there is Surer to catch up. Prost still leading, Jones still second. Behind them, I'm not making any impression on these two leaders who are going so much faster than anybody else, is still Nelson Piquet. Behind Nelson Piquet in 4th position, it is still John Watson. In 5th place, it is Hector Ribac. And I said coming up to lap 25, those were the positions on lap 25. Alain Prost leading Alan Jones by just under 1 second. Nelson Piquet is now only 7 seconds behind this battle for the lead as Prost comes up to take Andretti, and you will notice that Mario Andretti has been into the pits and had a new nose section fitted to the Alfa Romeo with a new wing, as a result of which he's right back on his race speed, very quick in practice, 7th fastest, but is being passed and lapped by the low-flying Renault because it's very, very quick, this turbocharged car. And I feel utterly confident that Alain Prost has got the measure of Alan Jones. This big Dutch crowd seeing some good racing. I say big because frankly the crowd is not nearly as big as we have had in previous years. I don't know whether the good weather has made them decide to go to the seaside further up the coast, but there's a much thinner crowd than we're used to seeing here at Zandvoort, and they're missing some terrific action. This action, Alain Prost racing well below lap record speed because he is now controlling the race from the front. Alan Jones is now actually slipping back. He's not making any impression on Mario Andretti, who, there's the gap, you see, not so long ago. It was only 2 or 3 cars lengths, and you can see visually that it's about 4 seconds now between Prost and Jones, as Alain Prost, who has had a patchy season, completes another lap, 3rd in the Argentine Grand Prix, that wonderful victory in France, 2nd in Germany after having led for so long. But Prost, and we're looking at Jones catching Andretti now. Prost has had no less than 8 failures to finish in Grand Prix this year. Otherwise, he would have been much higher up in the World Championship than he is. And Jones now has raced past Mario Andretti. Alan Jones, who won the first points counting World Championship Grand Prix of 1981 at Long Beach, and then went on to finish second in Brazil and third in the Argentine Grand Prix, second at Monaco, and those are his good results, as a result of which he is in fourth position in the World Championship behind his team leader, his teammate. He would be very insulted if he heard me say team leader, because he is contracted as team leader as Alan Jones. That was a nasty slip of the tongue from Alan's point of view. And it's his teammate, Carlos Reutemann, who leads the championship. And Alan Jones, therefore, in this race now, in second position, is after every point he can get to close the gap, as Prost completes another lap. Jones behind him. Mario Andretti in the background has been lapped, and I'm looking back to see how far Nelson Piquet is behind Alan Jones, and it's quite far enough from Alan Jones's point of view. Although it would never surprise me the way Jones has been throwing the car about to see him have a bit of tyre trouble. Indeed, that may be his problem at the moment, because it is quite clear that he can do nothing about Alain Prost at the moment. It is quite clear that Nelson Piquet, who has been driving a slower race in third position, will have his tyres in a better state than Jones. Look at the Williams and watch the way it pitches on the bumps. I have talked before about how these cars have virtually solid suspension because of this absolutely ridiculous ruling, as a result of which the skirts have been banned and the suspensions have been made more and more rigid to get the cars as close to the ground as they can and get the maximum downforce, and that gives the drivers a terribly hard time. They are battered black and blue when they get out of the cars, and we are always expecting a suspension to break and a car to go off. Indeed, that may well have been what happened to either Lafitte or Reutemann's car. We don't know. We've had no messages. Or it may just have been a physical contact with one trying to get past the other. More likely that. Prost leads. Where is Alan Jones? How far back is he? He's closed up a little. And behind him, Alan Jones, is Nelson Piquet. Then John Watson is virtually by himself. In fifth position now, the second of the two Brabhams. Nelson Piquet in third position. His teammate, the Mexican driver, Hector Ribac, number 6 if you see him on your screens, fourth at San Marino, is in fifth position. And the young Italian driver from Rome, Elio De Angelis, in the John Player Special Lotus, is in sixth position. But although the race has run a considerable distance now, it's rather short of half distance. There's still something like 100 miles to go in this race, and that's a long, long way. It's very grueling indeed. Thankfully, from the driver's point of view, as Prost completes the lap, Jones, now you can see that Mario Andretti, with that new nose cone, is holding on extremely well. And watch the top left corner of your picture and you may see, yes, that is Nelson Piquet coming round in third position. And Piquet appears to me, I'm just going to put the stopwatch on the gap between them. Yes, Piquet is definitely gaining. The gap between Piquet and Jones, as you can see there, is some 14 seconds, and it was, when I took it earlier on, far more than that. It was 18 seconds, and so Piquet has taken 4 seconds out of the gap between himself and Alan Jones. Jones has dropped back compared with Alain Prost, and so Jones is in some kind of trouble. Of that I am sure. Now let's see how he deals with Elio De Angelis. And it is significant that as we approach roughly half distance in the race and Alan Jones dives through and takes Slim Borgood, he is catching and he's going to lap the 6th place man, Elio De Angelis, number 11 in the Lotus, who has already, therefore, been lapped by the race leader Alain Prost. And we're getting a lot of car problems in the race. As I talk to you, you know that Gilles Villeneuve has gone out of the race. Didier Pironi in the 2nd Ferrari is out. We haven't seen Nigel Mansell. In fact, we haven't seen him at all in the whole race, but I can tell you that he's out of it because I've seen him walking despondently about the pits. We've seen Derek Daly in his pit out of the race. We know Jacques Lafitte and Carlos Reutemann are out. Bruno Giacomelli is out. René Arnoux is out. So already there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cars out of the race, and Alan Jones has lapped Elio De Angelis, as has Alain Prost. So the 6th man has been lapped by the first 2. But if De Angelis can keep going in the position that he is in now, he will get at least 1 World Championship point. He's in 11th position at the present moment with a mere 8 points, so every point he can get will be very welcome. And Alan Jones is keeping up his race pace, which is not fast enough. Not fast enough for the lead, and not fast enough to prevent Nelson Piquet from gaining on him. The Brazilian is continuing to gain on Alan Jones. That's Borgood in the background. And after 45 laps, well over half distance, you can see that Alan Jones is now 8 seconds behind this man, the race leader, Alain Prost. And it's actually getting a bit static. It's brilliant racing. Prost is showing the maturity of a veteran. Alan Jones in the... That's not Alan Jones. There is Alan Jones in the background. And now Prost has lapped Hector Ribach. Hector Ribach in 5th position. So as we look at Alan Jones, who has lapped Elio De Angelis, who is 6th, we have just seen Alain Prost lapping Hector Ribach, who is 5th. And at the finish of the race, I would not be at all surprised if there's only going to be 3 or 4 drivers all having done the full 72 laps at the speed they're going now. Looking at Jones going through the Rob Slaughtermacher bends. Now he's up to 155 miles an hour as he goes round the high point of the circuit. And here is the man that we've seen nothing of before. This is John Watson, who is in 4th position. Number 7, John Watson, the man who won the British Grand Prix, who's 5th equal in the World Championship with 21 points in what is my opinion the prettiest car in Grand Prix racing these days, the Marlboro MP4, made with a special carbon fibre body and chassis, enormously expensive but very light and tremendously strong. And this is the car that has enabled John Watson, the man who comes from Belfast, to re-establish himself in the top ranks of Grand Prix driving this year. There was a danger of him being fired from the Marlboro team this year because he had had such bad results in 1980 and 1979. But then when this new car came out, designed by John Barnard, John Watson proved by taking it straight away into the top places, and look at the way he's driving, that he is still very much a man to be reckoned with. And he underlined it by winning the British Grand Prix in brilliant style, and he has finished subsequently in the points in Germany and in Austria, and John Watson completes another lap. And such has been the car mortality in this race so far that most of the drivers... Now this is a slow motion picture of John Watson. Now have a good look at the suspension of the car. You will see that those rocker arms which connect the wheels to the chassis are hardly moving. Look at the way he takes the apex of the bend, using the absolute minimum of the circuit, keeping his line as short as he possibly can. This is a copybook example of real driving, and Alain Prost gives us another one as he completes the lap. Alain Prost virtually on his own. Look back and you see the circuit is clear behind him. He's pulled right away from the second place man Alan Jones, and he's closing up on Eddie Cheever, who he has already lapped. Cheever is in 7th place. That's the white Tyrrell in front of Alain Prost. So Cheever, who is in 7th place, is about to be lapped a second time by Alain Prost. Being lapped once is humbling enough, but to be lapped twice must be really demoralising when you think how fast you're going. Well, Alain Prost is about to make... And that's his teammate. There is confirmation. I said that Arnoux was out. I've seen him in the pits, but you haven't. That's Marie-Claude Beaumont, the Renault PR manageress in the background. And René Arnoux watching. It's not Cheever, I'm sorry, I misidentified. It's Alboreto. And there, after 50 laps, Prost, Jones, Piquet, Watson, Ribac, De Angelis, and Ribac in 5th place, De Angelis in 6th, are both a lap behind the first 4. And Siegfried Sturr is into the pits for obviously a tyre change. Look at that near side rear of his. Practically off the wheel. Off comes the wheel and the tyre. On goes a new one. Siegfried Sturr was in 10th position. He will have lost that. And there's another one. Now it's obviously that's Slim Borgood. And he'll be having real trouble controlling the car with that flapping tyre tread on the near side front wheel. He's keeping it going well because the near side of the car will be dragging along the ground. So little is the ground clearance. Less than 6 millimetres. Because the drivers have got the hydraulic control which enables them to drop the car, and if we stay with this we may well see that the side of the car is actually dragging along the ground. Well, we just... That's John Watson! My goodness! John Watson! What rotten luck. The British Grand Prix winner, John Watson, who was in 4th place behind number 5, Nelson Piquet, who is in 3rd, out of the race. Well, all of a sudden, it's starting to get very exciting indeed. Borgood out with tyre trouble. Siegfried Sturr out with tyre trouble. We've got a Michelin-shod Renault leading a Goodyear-shod Williams. Here's the Goodyear-shod Brabham of Nelson Piquet in 3rd position, and now up into 4th place will come Piquet's teammate Hector Ribac in the Brabham. Up into 5th place will come Elio De Angelis that we have seen being lapped, and an incredible achievement now into 6th place, somebody that we have not seen at all in this race, but of whom I have talked a lot about in the past, Eliseo Salazar, the young Chilean in his first season of Formula One racing, Formula One World Championship racing, and that is a magnificent achievement. But we're looking now on the 55th lap at Nelson Piquet, who is, according to that, about 20 seconds behind Alan Jones, and I was talking about Salazar, and there he is, in the ensign, the man who drummed up sponsorship in Chile and has not been doing very well in the eyes of his countrymen. He was telling me today that having given him the money, they expect him in Chile to win automatically. They think there's some correlation between expenditure and success. Well, there is some, but not if you're in your first year, as Salazar is. And he's now in the points for the first time. And if he gets home in 6th position, it will be a magnificent achievement by the Chilean and by the Mo Nunn and Nigel Bennett designed ensign which he's driving. Number 14, Eliseo Salazar, well into the race, well over half distance, in fact approaching 3/4 distance as Alain Prost completes the lap. And Prost has now lapped Salazar. There he is, number 14. The leader has lapped the 6th place man twice. Mark Sura is in 6th position. There is Hector Ribac, number 6, who is about to be lapped. He's in 4th position, and he's about to be lapped by the 2nd place man, Alan Jones. Behind Alan Jones is Nelson Piquet, but Piquet is definitely now catching Jones, and it must therefore be tyre trouble that Alan Jones has got. Because I've been listening to and have had 1 or 2 reports from around the course, his gear changes, and Alan Jones has still got all 5 gears operating in the Hewland gearbox in his Ford-powered Williams car. So, unless there is something wrong with Alan himself, it must be tyre trouble that's slowing him up. Salazar, Sura, Slim Borgood, Hector Ribac, Alan Jones goes through. There is Michele Alboreto. And behind Michele Alboreto is Elio De Angelis, who is now in 5th position. In fact, because so many cars have gone out, because Jean-Pierre Jerier has gone out, Riccardo Patrese has gone out, he's gone into the pits and he stayed there. Patrick Tombay is out of the race. Across the line goes Sura, now in 7th position. Slim Borgard, who has been lapped twice. There is Hector Ribac, who is 4th, has still not been lapped by Alan Jones. And that is a complete indication of how comparatively slowly Alan Jones has had to go now because of what I assume is tyre trouble, because under normal conditions, and that's confirmation, Alan Jones is now only 9 seconds ahead of Nelson Piquet. It was, not so long ago, 18 seconds. And there are still enough laps left, if Piquet continues to gain at the rate he has been gaining, for him to catch Alan Jones. Now, whether, having caught him, he could get past him, I don't know. But there's Borgood, there is Eddie Cheever, there is Alboreto, there is Ribac. Alboreto's been passed by Jones. Elio De Angelis in the background as they pass John Watson's car. Now, Alan Jones has still got to get past Ribac. I wonder if we'll see Piquet soon. 9 seconds isn't very much visually. We might even see it down the long straight. And now the race has really caught fire. Nothing is going to affect Alain Prost if he keeps going the way he is. Although I could have said that in Austria, but he went out with a broken suspension. Now, Alan Jones has got to start getting past people to maintain the gap between himself and Nelson Piquet. Hector Ribac, 4th position, laps Slim Borgood, who's well out of the running. He's in 9th position at the moment, but has already been lapped by Ribac. So, Parmalat Brabham leads the ABBA ATS, sponsored by the Swedish group. There is Ribac. Now, where is Alan Jones? In the background still. Alan Jones can do nothing about Ribac. Indeed, the Mexican is pulling away from him. And of course, Alain Prost will be fairly streaking away. There's a slightly increased gap between Ribac in 4th position, Alan Jones, who is already a lap ahead of the Mexican, and in the background I saw a flash of a car I thought was Nelson Piquet. It wasn't long enough for me to identify, but Piquet is definitely gaining. Completing a lap, Salazar, 6th position. Ribac, number 6, 4th position. Alan Jones, number 1 in 2nd position. There are now only 12 cars left in the race, with John Watson out. Slim Borgood is keeping going. And here is Salazar across the line. Now, are we going to see Piquet? There's De Angelis. There is Alboreto. And bearing down on Alboreto, that is Nelson Piquet. There's Alboreto. And pulling out to pass him, Nelson Piquet. So the Brazilian has really got the bit between his teeth now. Soon he will be able to see Alan Jones, and once he sees him, knowing from his pit signals that he's closed from over 18 seconds, he will be within, I would say, 3 or 4 seconds of Alan Jones, and Piquet has definitely got the opportunity to catch the Australian. 6 seconds it is now. Ribac still in 4th position, a lap adrift. And De Angelis 2nd. Yes, fifth, and Salazar 2 laps behind the leaders, holding that 6th position and on his way to a single World Championship point if he keeps going. But the excitement is all now centred around number 5, the Parmalat Brabham of Nelson Piquet, who is in 2nd position in the World Championship. He finished 2nd in the championship last year. He won, he was 2nd in South Africa, a non-championship race this year. Then he was 2nd in Long Beach. He went on to win the Argentine and San Marino Grand Prix. He won the German Grand Prix. He was 3rd in Austria. He's 2nd in the championship with 39 points. Carlos Reutemann is leading still with 45 points, but he's out of the race. So if Piquet keeps going, he is going to be 4 points behind Carlos Reutemann. But if he can get ahead of Alan Jones, he will be only 2 points behind Carlos Reutemann. No, he won't. I've just worked it out, and he would be tying with Carlos Reutemann. But still, there is no point in hypothesising. Alan Jones is not going to let Nelson Piquet past easily. But not only is the Dutch Grand Prix interesting enough with Prost leading, and we haven't seen him for a while, but take it from me, he's still there, going round in the Renault. Alan Jones in 2nd place, and the producer is sensibly concentrating on him because Nelson Piquet in 3rd position is gaining. In 4th place, it's still Hector Ribac, Brabham. In 5th position, it's still De Angelis, and De Angelis has now, as you see, right behind Alan Jones. So the 2nd and the 5th men are together as Ribac passes Salazar. And that's the other Alfa Romeo. We've seen Giacomelli go off, so that's Mario Andretti. Mario Andretti off the course, and he's taking a long time to get out of his car. They normally punch the quick release button in the middle of their shoulder and crutch straps, but for some reason or another Mario Andretti hasn't done it. That could mean, and I desperately hope that it doesn't, that Mario Andretti is trapped in the car by his feet, because if you look to the left, well, the picture changes, but let us hope, and I'm sure they'll show us again, let us hope that by the time we see that Alfa Romeo again, Mario Andretti is out of the car, which will be a good sign. Meantime, where is Piquet in relation to Alan Jones? And the answer is, he is right with him. In the short time that we were looking at Mario Andretti, Nelson Piquet has caught Alan Jones, and now we look again at Andretti. And that is an unhappy sign. They are lifting Mario Andretti out of the Alfa Romeo. He therefore cannot walk. He must have damaged one of or both of his legs. They've already got 2 course cars round there, and one of them will contain a doctor. In fact, that may be the doctor's equipment going out in that bag. And I fear that Mario Andretti will have broken a leg or an ankle. We'll hope for news. They'll get it to me if they possibly can. Meantime, Alain Prost goes through. But where is Nelson Piquet in relation to Jones? That's what really matters. Prost has won the race if he keeps going. There's too big a time cushion between himself and the battle for 2nd position. And there it is. And Piquet goes through at the end of the straight and into Tarzan. Nelson Piquet has moved up into 2nd position. Gets his revenge over Alan Jones. There's not a great deal of love lost between them, the Brazilian and the Australian, and Alan Jones can clearly do nothing about it. Nelson Piquet, with a bit of demon late braking at the end of the 175 mile an hour straight into Tarzan corner, the long right-hander passes Alan Jones on the right. We look again across the course at Andretti's car, and you can see him, and this is a replay. They've come into it very late because Piquet has already done the passing manoeuvre, but you see him go into Tarzan with his offside front wheel right on the grass, and it's as well for him that he got it back on the course before he hit that concrete curbing. And Nelson Piquet is now definitely, as Ribac goes through in 4th position. his teammate Nelson Piquet will be taking second position, and we look down on the victorious Alain Prost, almost at the end of an absolutely superb race. There's only a few miles for him to go now, and then Alain Prost, and I never say he's won any driver until I see the checkered flag, but those are the position on the 70th lap, and this is a 72 lap race. Prost 13 long seconds ahead of Piquet. Piquet now 9 seconds ahead of Jones, followed by Hector Ribac, Elio De Angelis, Eliseo Salazar and Michele Alboreto, the much-lapped Italian in 7th position. Well, Prost has not only shown smoothness and consistency, he has shown that he really is a very, very mature driver. And he crosses the line now into the lap that matters as he goes down and into Tarzan. And he must be sitting in the car both feeling happy and miserable. Happy because he knows that he's on his way to his second Grand Prix win, and he knows now that it's just a mile or two between himself and that checkered flag. He's driven an absolutely immaculate race, and oh, what bitter luck, because that's Michele Alboreto out of the race to join Mario Andretti and all the others. And at a quick check, only 9 cars are going to finish the race, and only 3 of them are going to have done the full race distance, assuming that Alain Prost, the race leader here, Nelson Piquet, who is in second position, and Alan Jones, who is in third place, all finish this vital lap. Well, there's Michele Alboreto's car in the background. Prost goes round that corner for the last time. And if he was the hero of France for winning the French Grand Prix, I should think he will get the Legion d'honneur for making it 2 Grand Prix in a season. And the crowd will go berserk. Indeed, his mechanics are going berserk. And out comes Gerard Larousse and all the rest of them. They've fought very, very hard for that victory. Renault have had terrible luck. So has Alain Prost. He has richly deserved to win other Grand Prix than the French Grand Prix this year. So no one, even Nelson Piquet, I should think, will grudge him his victory in the Dutch Grand Prix of 1981. And if ever there was a world champion of the future, we're looking at him now. There, the first, Alain Prost. Second, Nelson Piquet. Third, Alan Jones. Fourth, Hector Ribac. Fifth, De Angelis. And sixth, Salazar. And as I suspected, only 3 drivers complete the full race distance. Well, and I see that they're doing the suspension trick again. Prost has operated the cockpit control and in effect lifted his Renault up on stilts. But the World Championship situation is now very exciting. Tying for the lead, Reutemann and Piquet, then 11 points behind, Jacques Lafitte in third. Only 3 points behind him is Jones, then Prost and Watson. And any of those 6 drivers could still win this year's, the 1981 World Championship. The winner of the Dutch Grand Prix, there he is, Alain Prost, turbocharged Renault, the smiling Frenchman. They call him Mr. Punch, and look at his nose and you will understand why. And I must say, I think I would look even happier than Alain Prost if I was lucky enough to be up there. Alan Jones, not looking all that happy, but 4 points for third position is nothing to be ashamed of. And it helps Alan Jones's World Championship position. And on the extreme left of the rostrum, with champagne in his eyes, Nelson Piquet. So a very, very good Dutch Grand Prix, which has changed and closed up the World Championship positions. But from Holland, we go next to Italy, to Monza, for the last Grand Prix of the year in Europe. That's in 2 weeks' time, and we hope that you'll join us to see the Italian Grand Prix.